For centuries, Freemasonry's been this big mystery, right? Shrouded in secrets. But what if the whole point isn't about secrets at all, but about, well, a blueprint for building a better you? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on one of the world's oldest fraternities to get at its central metaphor, the transformation of a person from a rough stone into a vital part of a much grander structure. I mean, think about it. What if you could literally rebuild yourself piece by piece, stone by stone? And look, this isn't just some philosophical thought experiment. It's the absolute foundation of the Masonic journey. It reframes self-improvement, not as some vague idea, but as a deliberate, constructive process. Okay, so this one image, it pretty much sums up the entire idea. On one side, you've got the rough ashlar. That's us, straight from the quarry, full of potential, but also full of imperfections and rough edges. And the goal? It's to become that perfect ashlar on the other side, smooth, perfectly square, and ready to fit into something bigger. That transformation, right there, that is the Masonic path. So let's dig into that core metaphor. That rough ashlar, it's really just a symbol for a person in their natural state. We're talking uncultivated, with all those rough edges, and this is key, with this built-in potential to become something more. The old Masonic lectures actually have a really beautiful way of putting it. They say something like, by the rough ashlar, we are reminded of our rude and imperfect state by nature. By the perfect ashlar, of that state of perfection at which we hope to arrive. But here is the most important part. This isn't something that just happens to you. It's not a passive process at all. It takes work, education, self-discipline, and what they call the blessing of deity. Okay, but this whole idea is way bigger than just one person's journey. It's really the blueprint for an entire brotherhood. So you've got to ask, right? Where did this idea of using stonemasonry to teach philosophy even come from? Well, it all starts with the operative stonemasons. I'm talking about the actual guys who built Europe's incredible cathedrals. But as that kind of massive construction started to slow down, these guilds or lodges began letting in speculative members. These were men who weren't actually in the trade, but they were super drawn to its philosophy. And think about when this was happening, the Age of Enlightenment, a time when everyone was obsessed with reason, logic, and building a better society. So, the stonemason's structured system, it was the perfect vehicle for these new ideas. And it all came to a head in 1717, when the first Grand Lodge was formed, making the shift official. They went from building cathedrals to building character. And this right here completely demystifies the whole idea of Masonic secrets, doesn't it? Originally, it wasn't about some mystical, hidden knowledge. It was way more practical. Think of it like a medieval union card. These secret handshakes and passwords were just a way to prove you were a legit qualified craftsman, It protected the trade from people who didn't know what they were doing.
Okay, so if these speculative masons aren't out there actually building cathedrals, what's the deal with all the tools? Well, what they did was pretty brilliant. They repurposed them. They turned them into this rich language of symbols, where every single tool teaches a lesson about living a better, more moral life.
Now, this is probably one of the most recognizable symbols on the planet, and every single part of it means something. The square? It's not just for making right angles. It's a constant reminder to square your actions with virtue, to act honorably. Then you've got the compasses. They teach you to draw a circle around your passions, to keep them within bounds, a lesson in self-control. And right there in the middle, that letter G. It stands for two big, connected ideas, God or supreme being, and geometry, the science Masons saw as proof of a logical, divine order in the universe. And it doesn't stop there. The symbolism runs through all the tools of the trade. The plumb, for instance, that tool for making sure walls are perfectly vertical, that's about living an upright, just life. The level, used for checking horizontal surfaces, becomes this powerful symbol of equality. It's a reminder that at the end of the day, we're all on the same level. And the trowel, the tool used to spread the mortar that binds stones together, that's a metaphor for spreading brotherly love, the very cement that holds society together. So this leads us to a really crucial point. All this work on yourself, it's not just an internal thing. The whole point is to take that better version of yourself and use it to build a better community, and ultimately a better world. The logic behind it is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Think about it. A building made from a pile of rough, jagged stones, it's not going to stand for long. It'll collapse. But a building made from those perfectly squared ashlars, it's strong. It lasts. It's the same idea with people. Freemasonry teaches that if individuals work on themselves, they can come together to build a stronger,
more stable society. So how does this whole process actually work? Well, there's a structure to it. A guy's journey starts in what's called a Blue Lodge. That's where he goes through the first 3 degrees. Once he becomes a Master Mason, he's got options. He can join other groups, like the Scottish Rite for more learning, or groups like the Shriners, which are all about philanthropy. And when we talk about that philanthropy, the impact is, well, it's just staggering. Take this number, 1.5 million. That's how many kids have received free medical care from Shriners Children's Hospital since 1922. And it doesn't matter what their family's background is or if they can pay, it's maybe the most concrete example you can find of these Masonic principles in action. All right, so after all this talk about the perfect ashlar, it's easy to think that the whole point is to achieve, perfection. But the actual teachings hint at something a little more nuanced and honestly a lot more realistic. So let's just ask the question straight up. Is the ultimate goal here to become a completely perfect, flawless person? And you know what's interesting? The answer you'll find in Masonic teachings is a pretty clear no. The real goal isn't this impossible state of perfection. It's about becoming useful. It's about becoming a contributing member of society. See how that shifts the focus from being flawless to being helpful? And really, that tells you everything you need to know. This isn't a project with an end date. It's a lifelong journey. That whole transformation from a rough to a perfect stone, it's a metaphor for a process of constant improvement that really never stops. A Mason is always taught to measure his progress against one person and one person only, the man he was yesterday. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. I mean, in our world of AI and constant digital connection, does a philosophy based on the tools of ancient stonemasons, does it still matter? Can these old-school symbols for things like morality, equality, and self-control actually help us build a better future? That's a really good question to think about.